welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys all of my palettes along with a little declutter. This year, as I've mentioned in my previous videos, I'm trying to cut my collection down, and I noticed I have a lot of palettes that I don't really reach for, so therefore I am hoping that it goes down a lot. I'm going to start with things I really don't know if I'm going to keep or not. These are in the maybe. I am going to be trying them out a couple more times, and then in the future I will eventually let you know if I did declutter them or not. So the first one that is in the chopping block is the Coridguez by Sigma. This might be a little bit of a long video, so I hope you guys find the time to please get something to drink or a snack and just join me here for all my palettes. So again, I have two palettes from Sigma. This is the Coridguez, and I didn't have a lot of luck with this palette. I thought that this palette lacked a lot of blendability. I have the Enchanted as well, which I do love, but this one is in a maybe pile because I am going to try it out a couple more times and just finally make a choice whether I will be decluttering or not. Again, I am going to be making sure that I hold myself accountable for all of my collection because I have way too much. As a regular consumer, I find myself reaching for a lot of the same things, and I'm finally realizing I don't need this much makeup. I'd rather do videos where I do a simple looks, everyday looks that I enjoy. So I'm going to be deciding what palettes I'm keeping and not keeping. And this is going to be one of the maybes. It's going to stay in the way a little bit longer. I'm going to try it a little bit longer. And then I'll let you guys know in an updated video how exactly I feel about it, because it was actually in the bottom of my yearly favorites. Hi, Paul Boys. My dog just walked in here. Oh, be careful, Yoshi. This is the Sigma Enchanted. This is very blinding packaging. I'm going to be keeping this one. It's actually my favorite palette from Sigma. I just have this one and the Coridguez. I don't have any other ones from Sigma. This is really pretty. I like a lot of these more like deeper tones, these like more foresty greens. These shimmers are beautiful, and I have nothing bad to say about this one. So this one's actually going to stay. Alright, let's just talk about a couple of indie brands here. So the first one here I have is the Linda Hallberg palette. This is the Spectral palette. I do like this palette. I reach for it specifically in the spring and summertime. I like a lot of these shadows. They're actually very pretty to me. I think that a lot of these shimmers, especially the shimmer, and this blue is just very, very beautiful. I'm not going to swatch everything, but I just want to show you guys what I mean when I say that this blue is just, it's hard to swatch. It looks like a purple, it's a purple shift of blue. I don't even know how to explain it, but it shifts from purple to blue, and I think it's just very pretty. And for that reason, I don't have anything quite like this palette. This color story and the packaging is just very beautiful, so I will be keeping it. The next palette here is the Sugar Pill Capsule. This is the first one, the first edition of the Sugar Pill Capsule palettes. Again, same thing with the Linda Hallberg. These are shadows that I reach for more in the spring and summertime. They're just very colorful. I could do everyday looks with this palette as well. I do enjoy this one's supposed to be a blush hybrid. So yeah, I do like this palette. I love these shimmers. Same thing with the Linda Hallberg. They have a little bit of a shift. It's kind of unique and it's hard to explain. It's something that you have to see in person because the camera does not do these shades justice. They're very beautiful and very shimmery. This one has like a blue to purple shift, a little bit different than these Spectral, but kind of similar in the fact that it does do that shift. So I do like this palette. I'm keeping this one. Next, I have the Blush Tribe. This brand is no longer available. This was a palette they did with like YouTuber here on YouTube, creator here on YouTube. This is Paulina Beauty. She is a Swedish influencer. I'm gonna open this palette. This is obviously a very different color story for me. I do love this, however, and I love the creator behind it, so I am going to be keeping this palette. I think that a lot of these shades are very beautiful and very blendable, and I do enjoy this formulation as well. I just wish that they weren't so inconsistent. And if mine looks a little bit different, is because I believe these two shades are swapped out. They unfortunately didn't place them in the right places, so I still am keeping this one because of the creator behind it as well. I love her. Next is the Juice by Juvia's. This is probably the only palette that I reach for from Juvia's Place. I eventually over time got rid of all my other ones, which is a bummer because I've just had a really horrible experience with their customer service, and that's what makes me not want to purchase from the brand anymore. I've purchased palettes, I've purchased brushes, some lipsticks, but unfortunately a lot of those have been gotten rid of. This is the only one that stuck around, as well as Saharan. But this one I will be keeping because this is one that I do reach for, so I do like that one. This one, however, I will be decluttering. This is a Saharan 2 by Juvia's Place. I just don't reach for this. I have these neutral tones and other palettes that I prefer, and same thing with these shimmers. I can see myself having these in other palettes, and it's just something that I don't reach for, so it's gonna be going. Another Blush Tribe palette. This is the Fall Fusion palette. This is the same thing. This was done with a collaboration with a lot of creators, and I do like this palette. This reminds me of October, like gives me like fall vibes, very like warm plums over here. You get your pinks and you have your oranges and reds. So I will be keeping these. These shimmers as well are very beautiful. And the mattes, I can't say anything bad about them. They are very blendable and very like pigmented. So I do, sorry, that was like overlapped. I do enjoy this palette a whole lot, so I will be keeping this. I have the Lemonade palette from Midas. I know they constantly redo this packaging. Mine looks a little bit different than most people's, but I do love this color story. I am going to be keeping this. I don't have a lot of yellows in my collection, and the ones that I do have, I might be seeing myself getting rid of. Since I do have this palette now, this is a really pretty collection. I think they did a really good job with this. The only thing that I do wish, I wish it went a little bit deeper. Like I wish they would have maybe one of these two shades maybe removed and done a deeper, like a more like grungy. I know this is grungy, but it's not enough for me. I think I need something deeper. So I'll go ahead and swatch some of these here for you guys as well. Let me see here. I don't even know how to do this. Okay. So that is some of the colors from that one. And I will be keeping this one. I do like this palette. Like I said, when I do like doing something yellow, I do reach for this one. In the same lines with that, I have a couple of palettes from BH Cosmetics here that I'll talk about quickly because I do see them here. And then I'll also talk about this one. Alright, so I have two from BH Cosmetics. I am going to be honest, I'm going to be getting rid of this palette. When I first had this, I was in love with it. I constantly used it over the summer. This was a really well-loved palette for me. It doesn't really look like it, but I did enjoy a lot of the looks that came from this palette. I don't necessarily think this is a really colorful palette because if you do take some of these like brighter colors out, it looks more like a neutral palette. But nonetheless, I did enjoy the formulation. I enjoyed a lot of the shades. I'm going to be getting rid of this palette. It did serve its purpose in my collection, but I no longer reach for it, so I will be getting rid of it. This BH Cosmetics Desert Oasis has a lot of pretty shimmers, but to be honest, I don't find myself reaching for this palette. These highlighters are very beautiful, but I find myself reaching for individual highlighters over a palette, especially because some of my face palettes have been decluttered as well. So yeah, I'm going to be getting rid of this one. I do find a really good dupe for the shade from the Jackie Aina palette and this one here in Cactus. It's a really good dupe for that palette. I think it's super beautiful. Again, I just like these shades. They're really blendable, and they're, like I said, these shimmers are beautiful, but I just can't keep something that I'm not reaching for. See, now I kind of want to keep it. I have these shades, though, in other palettes, again, so I'm going to be getting rid of it. Alright, so this is the Menagerie Cosmetic, which I believe well, it was Makeup Monsters, now it's Menagerie Cosmetics, I'm sorry. I did rearrange this palette according to what I think I would reach for the most, like these purples, those reds with the gold, these blues, and these darker colors. I like this color story better, like to me. It was a little bit mixed up. So talking about this palette, as I was saying, I rearranged the shades so for me they look better, like more, I can find myself knowing what I'm going to reach for, kind of like a color story, I guess you could say. But to be honest, I don't reach for this palette. I don't reach for it. It is pretty hefty. It's pretty packaging and everything, but I think it's time to let this one go. I have the Glam Light Cake palette. I keep the packaging in this one because more than anything, I use it for display purposes, but this is the cake palette from Glam Light. Before purchasing this palette, I will say I didn't know much about the brand. Just the whole packaging and the whole color story behind it intrigued me. But now that I know about this brand a little bit more, I don't necessarily plan on purchasing anything from them in the future. I do love this palette, however, I don't have a lot of colorful palettes. You'll see that coming up pretty soon. I've been showing you a lot of my pretty colorful stories right now, but after this, I think it'll be a lot neutrally. But again, I don't no longer plan on purchasing from this brand. But I will be keeping this palette because I do like for this palette and I do reach for these tones. Again, I love the packaging and that's what made me fall in love with it when I saw it online. But after reading more about the brand and knowing a little bit more that I know, I don't plan on purchasing from them again. So a couple more like random, I guess, brands. This is the by Peachy Queen Never Trust the Living palette. I did have another one called Alien Queen, but I think I got rid of that one. I just didn't like the color story. The shades didn't necessarily were not as pigmented as I would like. But this palette, you guys, I love this palette. It's like really cute to me, really grungy. I love these purples. I think this is a really unique color story in my collection, and nonetheless, I do reach for this palette a lot. Especially when I do more colorful looks or around the fall and around like holidays, like October for Halloween. I do reach for this one a lot and I do like it, so I will be keeping this one. I have the Moonspell by Lunar Beauty. This is a brand by another YouTuber. This is Manny MUA's brand. I love the whole reason behind this whole palette. This is made with like the witches' names and everything like that in mind. It was an October release, but I actually purchased it, I want to say beginning of last year, so it's been about a year. It'll be about a year in February that I've had it. It's not too long, and I do love this color story. I do think it's very nice. I like the formulation. I love these shimmers. This shade right here is very unique, this purpley one, and I do like these colors, so I'm going to keep this one. I love doing this whole middle row. You can do like a very neutral look with this, and this can be a very good everyday palette as well. All right, along the same lines with Lunar Beauty, I have one palette that I know I will be getting rid of from Lunar Beauty, and the reason being I have never touched it. All right, this is the first palette that he ever came up with. This is the Lives of Drag from Lunar Beauty. I have never touched this palette. I think I've only swatched the shimmers here in the middle, right here. But other than that, this palette is untouched and unused, and I just think it's time for me to find it a better home. I could see myself selling this because, like I said, it's untouched. Oh my god. Did you see that? The blue? I just dug into it with this thing. Anyways, I can see myself giving it to friends and family. I'm sure they'll get a lot of love from this one, but for me, it's just not it. I never got around to reaching to it for it. I think it's just a lot of the reviews that I saw mentioned how these shades are super inconsistent, and again, I have a lot of these shades of neutral and colorful, so I will be getting rid of this one. All right, moving on. Since I already talked about Lunar Beauty, I got it over with. I talked about more indie brands. I have a couple more that I want to talk about. So we're going to talk about Dominique Cosmetics. I have 3 palettes from Dominique Cosmetics. So the first one here is the Berries and Cream palette. I love this color story. I think it's really pretty. I like these reds. I love doing a look like vampy, kind of grungy. I don't even know how to say it. Not grungy. What the hell am I saying? A little bit more like of a plummy color story. I think it's really beautiful. The only thing with this I would say is I find myself not reaching for this as much because, like I said, I have overwhelming amount of palettes, and I think that this is the time that I'm going to be testing this one out more along with the Coridguez, just to see what my final thoughts on this one are. These are going to go in the maybe pile, and these are going to be the ones that I'm going to be trying out for the next couple of weeks. Probably months, if anything. This is the Dominique Cosmetics Latte palette. This is her very first ever release. I love this palette. I can't say enough good things about these. These shimmers are beautiful. Those, you know, those simple neutral palettes or shades are very beautiful and very blendable. I like this formulation. I don't reach for these two colorful tones as much, but I do see myself like doing the pop of color on the lower lash, which is very beautiful, I find. So I will be keeping this palette from her. I do keep all the sleeves. I'm not sure why I do that, but I do. And last but not least is the Dominique Cosmetics Lemonade palette. And I love this palette, you guys. I love these shades, these greens, those purples. I love this for summertime. It's just really pretty, and I do find myself loving this palette a lot. I think this is my favorite one from her so far. All right, moving on. We're going to do Morphe since it's sitting right in front of me. All right, I have 3 Morphe palettes. This one is the Morphe 35H Hotspot. I actually received this from family around October of last year on my birthday, and I have not gotten around to play with it. To be honest, I think that's really disappointing of me, but I've been doing a lot of more cool tone looks lately, and I do want to play with these blues. I don't have any blues in my collection like this, so I want to keep this one and play with it because, again, it was a present, and I do love, you know, playing with different tones. So I think this is one that I'm going to be keeping and playing with as well. I think I'm going to add this to the list of products I need to try because, like I said, it is new. Next here is the Boss Mood 35M from Morphe. This is another Morphe palette that I do love. This is like my perfect fall palette. This top row reminds me of the Gemini palette that I really wanted from Melted. That's why I never got it, because of this palette basically fulfilled my need for that palette. And I do love this palette a whole lot. I don't really support Morphe in the future. I don't plan on purchasing them. I think that now they're going a more like young audience, like more TikTok-ish route. I don't know how to explain myself, but I do see them going like a more like they're trying to catch the eye of the younger audience, which is fine. I'm about to be almost 30, so I don't really plan on, you know, getting any more things. I do in the future. I'm not gonna say I'm not gonna purchase from them actually, because if I do see something that catches my eye, it's very affordable and it's a very affordable brand. So I really find that nice about them. So I will be keeping this one. Next, I have the original Jaclyn Hill palette. This is an old palette. Oh, I wish I could say how old this is because I don't even know. I think it's about maybe 4 years old, if I'm not mistaken. 3 to 4 years old. Ooh, one of the shades popped out. Okay, so you can see a shade popped out here. This is the shade, and I think it's like Silk Cream. This one popped out, just came out completely of the pan because it's like unglued or whatever. It's just really old. I did try to play with it recently, and it doesn't perform the same. Obviously, shadows go bad eventually. All makeup goes bad eventually, and this just is not, it's not it for me anymore. I have these tones over and over in my collection, so I'm gonna get rid of this one. Thank you, Jaclyn, but I'm gonna get rid of you. All right, we're going to talk quickly here about Tarte, since I have some Tarte palettes here. If I can get them. All right. So here are my Tarte palettes. I have 3. This is the Tartelette in Bloom. I love this palette. I think it's a really nice color story. I love how these shadows perform. I'm keeping this palette. It has really sentimental value for me as well because I did go on my first Disney World trip with this palette and did a lot of beautiful looks, and I am keeping this palette. I don't think I'm ever gonna get rid of it. I still reach for it as well. I love it. It was in my previous Shop My Stash. Tartelette Toasted. This is an iffy for me. I'm not sure what I want to do with this palette. Let me just move some of these because I feel like they're gonna fall. All right. So, Tartelette Toasted. I'm not sure what I want to do with this palette. Like I said, I have these color story over and over again. And if I am honest, I don't reach for this palette. I have the MAC Flamboyant palette. This is the only MAC palette that I have. And the color story is basically the same. So, you guys are seeing a lot of the same shades. And I do like the MAC formulation a lot more than this Tarte palette in particular. So I think, I don't know, you know what, I'm going to put it around the same with the playing with palettes, and I'm going to see how I feel about this palette. I need to play with it more, so I just can't get rid of that. That's beautiful packaging as well. I can't do with the packaging. And the MAC one, I'm keeping as well. I forgot to say that really quick. I'm keeping this palette. I love this palette. I love the formulation. There's no kick up whatsoever, and they blend out effortlessly, so I'm keeping that. Okay, last but not least is the Tarte and Adeline Morin. This is the last Tarte palette that I have. I am getting rid of this palette. I don't reach for this. I loved using this. This really pretty yellow was my favorite shade of all time. But I think it's time for me to get rid of her. She served her purpose. I don't reach for these shades for face or anything like that. So I can see myself getting rid of this, and somebody else can get a really good use of this, especially someone in my family that would love this. And the packaging is really pretty too. All right. I guess we'll do Urban Decay. 1, 2, 3. I think this is all of my Urban Decay. Actually, you know what? I have one more Morphe palette. I'm not getting rid of this. This is the Kathleen Lights and Morphe palette. I love this palette. It's not going anywhere. I don't care how old it is. She isn't going anywhere. All right, so moving along here. I have the Urban Decay Born to Run, which I love. You will see I have really good use of this palette. I really enjoy this palette. It's not going anywhere. I love it for travel. I've traveled with it when we've gone like out of state and stuff like that. So I'm really happy with this palette. I do love the packaging. I wish they did something like kind of similar to this, but a newer color story. I would really enjoy that from them. And the formulations of these is beautiful, so I'm keeping this one. I'm also keeping the Naked Urban Decay Reloaded. I recently had it in my previous Shop My Stash along with the Tarte and Bloom, and I really love this palette. I find myself doing a lot of really cool tone looks with these shades right here. You can do a lot of pink looks. It is really similar to a Sultry, but I feel like this lacks a lot of what the Sultry gives. And for that reason, I think they're very two different palettes, so I will be keeping this one. And I love the packaging. It's just very pretty. It's like cushiony packaging. And those orchids, I think they're orchids, right? I think those are orchids. They're really beautiful. All right. Naked Honey. This was one of my best finds of 2020. I think that was the best thing of 2020, to be honest. I love this color story. It's very neutral, very like honey warm. It's beautiful. You can do a lot of different looks with this palette, so I will be keeping this one as well. All right, moving on to Too Faced. I have this Just Peachy. This is one of my first ever palettes that I got, and I remember I saved up for this palette. I'm keeping this palette. I do like this color story. I think this is a really good travel palette. I just recently used it again. It was in my previous Shop My Stash, and I do enjoy it, so I will be keeping this one. It still smells like peaches. Really pretty. Next, I have the Too Faced Pumpkin Spice, which is one of their newer releases. I got this one last year on holiday. Well, I mean, you know, a couple months, like last month, okay? I've had a little bit of trouble with this palette, to be honest. This shade here and this shade here has given me a little bit of trouble. They're like a little bit more loose glitter. I am not 100% sure how I feel about this palette. I need to play with it a lot more. I tried to do some kind of look with these three shades, and for some reason it looked really weird on my skin tone. I think it has a lot to do with that, for one. But I'm not sure. I'm going to keep playing with this one and just decide here in the next couple months what I'm going to be doing with this palette, because I'm not 100% sure. Next, I have the Too Faced Chocolate Gold. This is a really old palette. It's about 2 to 3 years old. I want to say, what year does it say on here? 2017, 18, so it's about 4 years old. I'm going to be getting rid of it. I think it's time. She did serve her purpose. This is my favorite shade in here, which is Rich Girl. It was my favorite shade in the palette, but I think it's time for me to get rid of her. I think she served her purpose, and I just don't need her anymore, so she can go to a better home. I think she still has a pretty good life, so I'm going to be getting rid of this one. It only has 4 mattes, by the way, too, so it doesn't really, I don't find myself doing complete looks with it. All right, moving on here. We're going to be talking about the Too Faced Gingerbread palette. This is the Too Faced Gingerbread Spice. I think I'm going to get rid of this palette. I have this color story and other palettes that I prefer. I think it's time for me to let her go, so she's gonna go. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Let's do Laura Lee. I have the Nudie Patootie from Laura Lee. I had her first release as well, the Cat's Pajamas palette. This palette is not gonna be going anywhere. This palette kind of saved me from a little bit of depression. I kind of was like falling out of love with makeup, and when this release came out, I purchased it right away, and I fell in love with makeup again. I actually purchased a couple of these to give to family and friends because I loved it that much. So for that reason, this is very sentimental to me, and I'm gonna be keeping it. The Nudie Patootie is also a very pretty nude color story. I like this palette a lot. Let me see here. I don't know how I feel about this palette to 100%. I've played with it multiple times, and I do love all the looks that I come up with. But yeah, I'm gonna keep this palette. I do like this color story. All right, Charlotte Tilbury. I only have one that I know of. Yeah, I only have one. I only have one Charlotte Tilbury. I actually have one more Tarte palette I'll talk about real quick. This is a Tarte Foil Finger Paints palette. I don't reach for this palette anymore, so I think it's time to say goodbye to her. She has a lot of pretty shimmers. They're like kind of like creamy shadows. But I kind of feel like this is what makes me keep this palette. You guys, look at that. Oh my gosh, now I kind of want to keep it. Even this red is beautiful. Yeah, I'm keeping this. Oh my god, why? Those are so beautiful. Okay, I'm gonna keep this palette. I thought I was gonna get rid of it, but I can't part with these. I hate these two glitters. These, like, I wish I could just pop these. I think I'm gonna eventually do that, just kind of. So now that I got those out of the way, I will be keeping this palette for those 3 shades. I do like these. I think this is gonna go back in my single shadows. It wasn't my single shadows, but I pulled it out, so I think I'm gonna put it back in there. All right, moving on. I only have, like I said, one Charlotte Tilbury palette. This is the Charlotte Tilbury Instant Eye Palette in Pillow Talk, and I do love this formulation. I think this formulation blends out very nicely on the skin. This packaging is obviously very blinding. I do like this color story. It's beautiful. It's very neutral, very pinky, very like model-esque, and I really like that about this palette. So this is gonna stay. Hi, Booger. What you doing? So moving along, I have this Dose of Colors palette. This is a Dose of Colors Desi and Katie Friendcation palette. I love this palette. My favorite palette in this, my favorite shade, I'm sorry, is Churro. So I like these color stories. I love doing a lot of really nice look with these shimmers. So I will be keeping this one. And you know what? Looking at this shades and then looking at the Tarte one, they're very similar. They feel kind of the same kind of creaminess. Oh, they're deeper. Yeah, this is more of like a shimmer top. I'm gonna keep these both. I do enjoy them both. So this is gonna stay in my collection. We're not doing very good here. All right, let's get ColourPop out of the way since I think it's the biggest in my collection. All right. All right. Dream Street from ColourPop. I don't know if you can get this anymore. I don't think you can. So I'm gonna be getting. No, you know what? No. I love this palette. I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna keep it. She's gonna stay. Element of Surprise from ColourPop, I'm getting rid of. I did move some of these shades around. They are magnetic, if you guys didn't know, by the way. You can move these shades around, and I did make my perfect palette, so I'm going to get rid of these shades that are left in this palette. Moving along, here's the You're a Cutie palette. This is one that I actually mixed some shades around with. This is not the original shade in this palette. This isn't the original shade. Some of these aren't either, but I did move this around, so therefore I am going to be getting rid of her because I finally chose my shades. I'll talk about that really quick since I already have it here in front of me. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this one. Okay, so talking about that, I mixed around the It's My Pleasure. This has some shades from the Ooh La La, some shades from the It's My Pleasure, some shades from the You're a Cutie. So I think I made my perfect palette for that kind of color story, and I'm going to be keeping this one. I will be getting rid of the Becky G and ColourPop Salvaje palette. I did love this palette. I love who made it. She is a reggaeton pop artist, if I'm correct. If I'm not, it's okay, you can correct me. But I do like this palette. I don't, just like I said, I have these colors on their palettes, and it's just something I don't reach for. Yoshi, be careful. My dog, sorry you guys. And this is something I don't longer reach for, so I will be getting rid of it. And I do have the packaging, the original packaging, so I can find myself giving it away to somebody that will get good love of it, because you can see it's barely even touched. All right, so the Zodiac from Kathleen Likes is going nowhere. I love this palette. I really enjoy the looks that come up with this palette, and I'm keeping her. Same thing with the ColourPop I Think I Love You palette. I think they should do more shades, like more color stories like this that have those super glittery shades, those more satin shimmers, those, you know, mattes formula. I think this has a really good formulation of all types. You have like really satin, you have glitters, you have like not glitters, but you have like more shimmery shades, and of course those beautiful mattes. So I'm keeping this one. Sweet Talk, same thing with this palette. I really think that this replaced my love for the Too Faced Peachy palette, Just Sweet Peach palette, so I'm going to be keeping this one. I do like the color story, however, mine is getting a little bit of a hard pan, if you can probably see that right there. I'm not sure what happened. If I don't really I make sure that my brushes are always clean when I use my palettes, so I'm not sure what quite happened there, but I am going to be keeping this palette. The only thing about this palette that really stinks, and I'm probably eventually going to in the future get rid of these two, because I did get rid of them from the So Jaded palette, which you'll see, so I'm going to eventually probably do that. This is a Sailor Moon and ColourPop Pretty Garden palette. They did a collaboration with Sailor Moon. I am keeping this palette because of nostalgia. I love this palette in the spring. I just wish this did a little bit. These were actually true mattes, because these are like their shimmer formulation with their matte shimmer formulation. I wish these were all true mattes, because I get it for blendability purposes. I understand why they do this formulation. I just find myself kind of finding extra steps. I have to extra tap on my brush and all that stuff to make sure that the glitter does fall out of those shades, but I do love this palette. It's going to stay in my collection. And I believe you can still get this one. Designer Collection and Misunderstood. I'm keeping these two palettes. I do love them from ColourPop. These are going to stay in my collection, so I am keeping these. I also have two larger palettes. I have some single shadows here I will be keeping. I rearranged my single shadows in a different palette. The other palette that I had was just getting too dirty, and I love these color stories that I made, so I'm going to be keeping these single shadows. You can get these single shadows on their website, and I think they have a sale currently right now, or they did have a sale. I saw something for 25% off single shadows and super shock. So if that's something you're interested in, I would take a look at their page. But I'm keeping these. I love it. I love those. They're actually in my current shop, my stash right now. Okay, so this is what I was talking about. So I have the Bare Necessities and the So Jaded. These palettes are not exactly how they look. They come out obviously different because I did replace these shades. So these two shades are replaced from the 1, 2, 3 are replaced. So these 3 shimmers that you see here are replaced from other palettes, from the It's My Pleasure palette and the You're a Cutie, because I did take some of these shades out and put them in the So Jaded because I took those glitters out of the So Jaded. So this is the color story that I have now, and I really like these shimmers. They're really pretty. You can do like a pop of color as well with this shade especially. I just think it's super pretty. This is from the It's My Pleasure, and I really like that shade, so I had to pop it out and put it in here. And now I'm really happy with this palette, so I will be keeping her. I also have the So Jaded from Kathleen Lights, which I mentioned had 2 pressed glitters, and I took them out and replaced them with these 2 from the... This shade here and this shade here were replaced from the Bare Necessities, and now I have all like shimmers and mattes because I didn't like those pressed glitters. I understand and respect her wishes for putting those in there, but I just don't necessarily find myself reaching for those. So I replaced them with these 2 shades, and I'm happy with the way that my palette looks now. These 2 last from ColourPop are, I have the Just My Luck palette from ColourPop. This is a really pretty green color story. This shade is like broken. This shade here, and chances are is kind of shattered, but you have to be very careful with these palettes because they do fall and break really easily and the shades pop out. Obviously they are magnetic. I do love this color story though. However, I don't have anything that this green. I do have the Emerald Obsessions from Huda Beauty, but it does have some different color tones as far tones as far as these, so I will be keeping this one for now. And I also have the Glowing Coconuts. She's not going anywhere because I am coconuts about this palette. I love this palette. It's very good for neutral looks, and you can do some kind of like warm. You can also do a little bit cool. It's not perfectly neutral. I think it kind of leans a little bit both ways. So I think this is a really nice palette, and I do love her, so she's going to stay. Let's talk about the minis really quick since I'm getting over talking so much. I have the Paris Edit, which is currently in my Shop My Stash. I pull these out because I know that Huda Beauty released, or not Huda Beauty, Charlotte Tilbury and Pat McGrath just released new palettes. So I'm kind of reaching for this kind of same color stories to love them more and play with them more. Same thing with the Huda Beauty New Nude. I'm keeping her. I love her. I got this for my husband. He gifted this to me last year on Valentine's Day. So we'll be keeping this one. They're in my current Shop My Stash along with the Single Shadows. Also, I have another Huda Beauty palette that I know is staying. This is the Huda Beauty Mercury Retrograde. I love hers for springtime, and, you know, I love these purples and those beautiful tones, and I love the fact that she plays with a lot of different formulations, so I'm going to keep that. Alright, moving on here, we're going to talk about my mini palettes. Alright, let's talk about this first one. This is the Glam from Profusions. I've never tried this brand before, but I love these shades so much, you guys. I'm really happy it's in my collection, to be honest. It's very beautiful. Those shimmers are very nice. They are very pigmented. They blend out effortlessly, and I think for $4, this is originally priced at $8, but I got it on sale for $4 at Walgreens. And I can't say anything bad about this. I love it. And that black is beautiful for a drugstore. Moving on, I have the Natasha Denona Camel palette, which is an everyday palette that I reach for every single day almost, especially for this shade here in the middle. I think this is like a really nice neutral shade to go in your crease with, especially for someone with my skin tone. I am a light to medium skin tone, so I do like this one. I'm keeping her. I'm not doing a very good job anymore, you guys. This is the color Icon from Wet n Wild. I actually have this on my eyes today. I'm doing like a more bluey look, and I do like the look that I came up with. It's very pretty. I will be keeping this and testing it out more. I do like the color story. I think that I don't have a lot of this color story besides the Enchanted in my palette, so I will be keeping it. And I will be doing a comparison very soon with the Enchanted palette as well. Alright, so let's talk about my minis here. I have one more Natasha Denona. This is the Natasha Denona Mini Lila palette. I got this on sale at Sephora for like $12. I'm keeping this palette. I do like this shade, so I'm keeping her. I have 2 mini bite size from e.l.f. and I do love these color stories. I have Truffle and I have Rose Water. Truffles and Rose Water. Truffles is here, Rose Water is here. I love these. Love the blendability of these shades. I think they're very beautiful. They're very affordable for $3, and I think you can't go wrong with these minis. I really, really enjoy them. The formulation is beautiful and effortlessly blends. I think they're really easy to work with, and for someone that doesn't have a lot of them in their collection, I think these are really good to pick up and, you know, try on your eyes. And again, these pinks and purples are just my jam, so I'm going to keep this. And this black as well is really good for fall liner, so I like that. Keeping those. I have a quad from Soap and Glory. I actually purchased this at Ross for like $2. It was unopened. It was really nicely packaged, really well glued. And this is a quad in Feel the Heat. Again, same color story with the warm tones. I think I have these tones in other palettes, so I think this one I will be getting rid of.
Okay.
I have this Kaja Bento Beauty Box in Rose Water, a 1. Same thing with those shades that I do like. I don't really reach for this one though. I think this should be going in my single shadows because this is something that I need to reach for more as well. I can see myself getting rid of this in the future, but for now, I am going to hold on to it. I have the Mini Heat from Urban Decay. This is the Naked Petite Heat. I'm going to be getting rid of her. I have a lot of these shades on other palettes that I do enjoy more, so I will be getting rid of this one. I have the Emerald and the Coral Obsessions from Huda Beauty. I'm keeping this Emerald. It's really beautiful. I love a lot of these tones. I had it in my previous shop my stash, and I enjoyed a lot of the looks that I did with it, so I will be keeping it. The Coral Obsessions I can see myself getting rid of, but for now I will be keeping it because I do like these like more like orangey tones. I don't have a lot of orange, so I will be keeping these. You know what? No, yeah, I'm gonna keep her. No, I'm gonna get rid of this one. I'm gonna get rid of the Coral and I'm gonna keep the Emerald because I do like the Emerald. This is a mini from Pat McGrath that I received when I purchased like a little set with the mini mascara, and I think this palette came in it. It doesn't have quite of a name, but I have these shades in other palettes. So I think I'm gonna get rid of it. This doesn't truly represent her formulation, so I'm gonna get rid of this one. It's really nice for travel, actually. Oh my goodness, Drama Queen. I think this is a really good travel palette. You know what? I'm actually gonna keep it. It's gonna stay. I like the packaging as well that it came with the sleeve. Alright, last 3 here. I have 2 from this brand, Catkin from Amazon, and a Milani Bold Obsessions. So this first one is Catkin 07, which is like an avocado palette. That's what they call it. I think this is a really pretty spring and summer palette, so I'm going to be keeping her. I'm also going to be keeping this one here. This like the pinky purples I love as well, so it's going to stay. This Bold Obsessions from Milani I can see myself getting rid of. I do have these colors over and over in my collection. And with picking up the new color icon from Wet n Wild, I have these shades as well, like those more bluey colors. So I am going to be getting rid of the Bold Obsessions. Yeah, I think I got this. I think we're good. Gonna be getting rid of it. Down to the last palettes here. I just have these and these 2 from Pat McGrath. So really quickly, I'm going to keep this Blitz Astro Quad and Ritualistic Rose. I love this. I actually have it in my current, like I have it outside of my vanity. It's not in my current shop my stash, but I have it because I want to reach for these more. This is the Ritualistic Rose Quad from Pat McGrath. This was very pricey. And these shades are very unique to her. I think they're very beautiful. I'm going to go ahead and swatch them here for you guys really quick. I just think they're very unique, especially these 2. She has a really nice formulation, and they do have a long power, like they stay a long time on your lid, so I think these are going to stay in my collection. I love that, and it was pretty pricey, so I think a lot of these high-end ones are going to stay. Keeping her. Alright, moving on here. This is the Pat McGrath Mothership Rose Decadence palette. This was a release from like end of last year. I am keeping her as well. I do love these shades. Love this, and I love the formulation. They're very easy to blend and very effortless to blend, so I'm going to keep that. Moving on here, we're kind of going to talk about Natasha Denona and NARS. This is a NARS Skin Deep palette. This is no longer available. It was a limited edition, but I do love this palette so much, and this is going to stay in my collection. Natasha Denona Bronze palette actually won my 2020 makeup favorites. This is one of my favorite palettes from her, so I'm going to be keeping this color story, and I just love it. It kind of replaced my love for the Naked Heat, replaced my love for the Tartelette Toasted, which I think I'm going to get rid of, but for now I'm going to keep this one. I love this one, of course. This is Natasha Denona Glam palette. This is also one of her more cool tone releases. I love this as well. Very beautiful formulations, very blendable. I love it so much. Biba isn't going anywhere, of course. She is my everyday neutral palette. I love her so much. Love her so much. She's not going anywhere. You can see I do use this one. I love it, so I'm going to keep her. Just in a gold palette. I love this one as well. Very beautiful color story with those blues. Those shimmers are beautiful. Cannot say enough good things about that, so keeping her. Natasha Denona Metropolis palette. Love her. That's why I don't mind getting rid of some of the other ones, like the Jaclyn Hill one and the like beach and all those, because I have this. Love this color story. I wish it kind of had a little bit more of those greens and blues, but I'm okay with what I have, and I love this so much. Love the blendability. I love this formulation. I love her cream to powder formulation as well. They're very beautiful. You can see that I do use those. All right, moving right along here, I have these last 6 palettes. Carly Vale from Anastasia Beverly Hills is not going anywhere. I love the looks that I've been doing with this palette. She isn't going anywhere. Jackie Aina is my #1 palette from Anastasia Beverly Hills. She is not going anywhere. Sultry is my #2, very close #2, so I'm going to keep her. Love her. This is what made me fall in love with cool tones, you guys. And I'm pretty sure I'll be hitting pan in this shade Twig anytime soon. You can't really see it, but I'm pretty sure I'll be hitting pan in that anytime soon here. Alright, Modern Renaissance, I'm going to be getting rid of her. I don't reach for her anymore. She's going to be going. I think it's time for me to move on from this. I have this on other palettes. I have the Huda Beauty. I have the Mothership Rose Decadence, which has these similar, like, you know, pinky, like these kind of wine color tones. So I'm going to be getting rid of this one. I think it's time, and it's in pretty good condition where I can just give it to a family member that I can really get low with this one. Norvina, I love her. She's not going anywhere. Pinks and purples are just my fave, so I'm actually going to be keeping her. She's not going anywhere. Love her. All right, let's see here. Soft Glam. This is a palette that needs to get more love from me, and I love this color story. It's very neutral. I see myself reaching for this a lot, especially this pinky one here. This mauvey pink is really beautiful, and Dusty Rose. This Dusty Pink, and I'm keeping this one. I think that this kind of completes my love for those shades that are missing, like the Vienna and Primavera. I think Glistening and Fairy does it for me with these two shimmers, does it for me enough with these ones that I loved from here. So I'm going to be getting rid of the Modern Renaissance, which breaks my heart to do, but I think it's time for me to get rid of her. Let me see. Yeah, I have Dusty Rose in the Soft Glam. I have Fairy and Glistening for the Vermeer and Primavera. I have Burnt Orange, the same shade in here. I have Raw Sienna and Sienna. Rustic, I have Warm Taupe. Cypress Umber is in both of these palettes. Mulberry, I don't see, but I mean, it's a really unique, different shade. It can be similar to Red Ochre. Noir is obviously a more deeper color. Antique Bronze, I have Sultry. Golden Ochre, I have Orange Soda. Tempera is Tempera. So yeah, I'm going to be getting rid of the Modern Renaissance, and I'm going to be keeping my Soft Glam.
Let's see my declutter. So I decluttered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17.
I decluttered 17 palettes, and I think I'm good with that. I know they're going to be loved by friends and family. They're going to appreciate them more than I currently am. And I'm really happy with what I kept. I know it's still a lot, but it did get my collection down a little bit. So I'm really happy about that. And the ones that I will be trying out will be, you know, palettes that I need to reach for more. Sorry, I'm like moving you guys around. So I will be you see, I'm like redoing my whole, everything's getting redone. So I'm working through this whole space. I'm redoing my space. But these ones here that I will be keeping to try more. The Coridguez, the Berries and Cream from Dominique Cosmetics, the Morphe, the Pumpkin Spice, the Tartlet Toasted. I am working through what I have. I'm trying to figure out what to do. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.